Welcome back to City Chats. My name is Joyce Dooley, Senior Research Analyst for Zpryme. I'm incredibly excited today because we are having Jigyasa Sharma join us with US Ignite. And we're going to be talking about trust. Building trust within a community takes time and can be incredibly difficult for cities to achieve, especially when implementing smart city solutions. US Ignite, however, may have found the key in understanding just what it takes to build trust and to keep it. With that, let's go ahead and turn over to Jigyasa. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Joyce, and thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
Oh, this is going to be wonderful. You know, I absolutely love our conversations, and, you know, it's a really great chance to get to highlight the projects that US Ignite is working on, as well as just to showcase more of what you do on a regular basis, which I think is pretty awesome. So I'm really excited about this as well. Before we dive in too deeply, though, I really want to know what makes you so passionate about smart cities.
Great question to start our conversation with. So I think my passion sort of goes a little beyond smart cities. I've always been like super interested and curious in understanding how, you know, we can use private sector solutions to solve some of the problems in the public sector to achieve sort of better outcomes in terms of quality of life and standard of living. And smart cities sort of happen to be at the center of this conundrum. You know, as we know that around 2/3 of the world's population is going to live in cities by 2050. So I believe cities are sort of this powerful, you know, huge growth engines to bring about like positive change at scale in our urban settings as well as in our communities. And I guess that's also the reason why I love working with US Ignite, because every day is a new day, every day is a new challenge. And we work with communities across the nation and we help them with their smart city initiatives to make their communities a better place to live in. So yeah, I guess that, you know, captures sort of my passion for smart cities.
Great, thank you. You know, there's so many reasons to be passionate about smart cities. And one of the things I think that's really amazing about this work is that there is room for everybody in some capacity. Right. And, you know, bringing a new lens to that as well is really enriching and impactful. And so I'm very eager to dive in a little bit further and talk about the lens that you bring to this and how it's really establishing real change in communities. So before we do that, however, I would love it if you could give us a brief overview of how US Ignite has been helping to build smart cities and what US Ignite's mission is.
For sure. So US Ignite is a 501c3 research organization. We are based in DC, but it's amazing because I get to work from from the Bay Area. So we support the upward mobility of underserved communities through smart city expertise, stakeholder engagement, and community partnerships. Our nationwide footprint now actually includes around 50 smart and connected communities where we support local development through a range of programs. We were launched back in 2012. And since then, we have been working very closely with federal agencies like Department of Defense and Commerce. We work very closely with the National Science Foundation, you know, to achieve a large-scale change and to drive the smart cities movement.
That's great. I'm somewhat familiar with US Ignite and am really blown away by how organized it has been over the last few years. You know, I think I was first familiar with it in 2016, and I've kind of followed the organization's progress over the last, 6 years. Wow, 6 years.
Yeah, we've grown a lot in that much time. Like our team is expanding, and it's very exciting time at US Ignite.
Yeah, and to see all the different projects that you guys get to touch too is really wonderful. And it makes a real impact. And through that work, we were able to interview Dr. Carrie Kelly with the TELUS organization, which, I think is one of our better viewed videos. So, absolutely love having, your contacts come through us and share what's going on. So what are some of the projects you're working on right now that you're most excited about?
So I think two projects sort of occupy my mind most of the time. The first one is Project Overcome. So Project Overcome was developed by US Ignite in partnership with the National Science Foundation and Schmidt Futures. It's a $2.7 million project on innovative broadband access program. We are helping 7 communities across the US to connect the unconnected. What I really like about this program is like it's very holistic. So we have helped our 7 communities from the stage of technology deployment to even thinking about access, adoption, to thinking about digital literacy, digital training, placemaking. Some of our communities have connected community centers. So it was sort of great to see how they brought the whole community together to sort of create, that space where the community can come together and connect to the internet. I definitely, Project Overcome for me has been a project that has been extremely rewarding and very fulfilling. And I think I'm going to talk about it for the longest time in my career because, that what you've been talking about, creating an impact, like I've seen firsthand how US Ignite have been able to help these communities really change things on ground. So I think it definitely tops my list of the projects that are going to always stay very close to my heart. The next exciting thing I'm working on is we're doing some work with our partners at Purdue Research Foundation. We're working on the Digital Trust Initiative that they have launched for their 400-acre innovation district called the Discovery Park District. And you'll often hear me talk about it as DPD. So, what's great about the Digital Trust Initiative is the leadership at DPD is trying to pre-solve for trust. What I mean by that is, we often see cities which have thousands and millions of population, they bring in tech and then they realize, there are all sorts of trust issues. With DPD, we are building a community and we are building civic trust in tandem with its digital ecosystem. So that's sort of what I mean is that we are thinking ahead and we are trying to anticipate what sort of, issues with tech adoption might emerge and how can we empower the residents to sort of make choices about how they would want to live in DPD, and with the goal of sort of ensuring digital sovereignty as well as improving their quality of life. So I think I don't want to reveal too much because we are soon going to publish some stuff around it in the fall. But yeah, that's sort of the highlight of it, and I would definitely encourage everyone who's interested in learning more about ethical data governance and policies and practices around responsible innovation to just follow our work that we are doing with Discovery Park District.
Yeah, just throwing out a teaser like that for us.
Yes, I'm happy to share some links where people can read about what we have been up to so far. Yeah, just some cookie crumbs. Like I don't want to reveal too much at this point.
No, that's fair. I mean, but you said some wonderful things, right? Like, you're talking about digital sovereignty and, ethical data governance. Those are all really amazing concepts. And it is something that needs to be dealt with because it's really easy to end up in what can feel like a surveillance state of sorts between all of the technology applications that are collecting and sourcing data, plus other people wanting to use the public's data for a variety of reasons. And not all are, as on the up and up as it could be, or it definitely feels like there's room for malicious or wayward intent to come into the mix. And so, smart cities are often criticized for leveraging, surveillance technology. How does the US Ignite framework of trust really address this and help?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to the Fostering Civic Trust Guide that we launched last year. Before I go into that, I think we all sort of have been in rooms where the technology side of smart cities is so overhyped that we often lose sight of what the complete smart story picture is, right? Time and again, we have seen communities rely too much on technology and not give much thought to the people and the policy side of things. And in my opinion, I believe with so much advancement in technology is actually now the simple, easy part of the smart city story, right? The more complicated, or I would say complex, and the difficult part is actually sort of laying the foundation of the people and policy that a lot of the successful smart city projects are really built on, right? So our goal was to like really make clear that the people and the policies are the foundation, are the drivers of a successful smart city project. And last year, when I started working with US Ignite, we started up with a pretty mind-blowing data that I got from a report published by CISA, which said that around 80% of prototypes fail to scale, and about one third of all smart city projects failed, right? So like there are consequences to these failures, and they're often seen in form of like they undercut trust that people place in community leaders and municipal leaders. So sort of this idea was at the heart of the trust framework, or the civic trust guide that we started building. So we did do sort of a lot of research, and we talked to a lot of policy leaders, and we were very clear. And at US Ignite, we believe that civic trust is central to the smart city movement, and it's sort of both the ends and the means to a successful smart city project. So we created an ecosystem of trust, which sort of was a recurring theme when I talked to a lot of people, and it's based around 5 policy domains, and they are data governance, privacy, cybersecurity, community engagement, and equity. And sort of these different 5 policy domains sort of overlap and interact with each other to foster an ecosystem of trust. So we published the Fostering Civic Trust Guide last year with a goal to provide sort of this one-stop document for communities to understand how they can operationalize some of these things. Because I understand like privacy can mean everything and nothing all at once, right? Like it's pretty abstract. So what we have tried to do is sort of list some of the best practices, some of the good examples that we have seen other communities in other communities. So we have tried to put all of that in one document and provide some guidance to our communities on how to think about the different policy domains and sort of foster a similar ecosystem of trust in their communities. So I can share a link, and you can put it, attach it to the video, but it's a 100-page document, but I do want to say that it's very readable in the sense that if I were to like tear a section out of it, I can still read it. Like I don't have to read chapter 1 to get to chapter 2. So it's written in a very easy, plain English, no jargons whatsoever. And it's very accessible and readable in the sense that you can pretty much just start anywhere and you'll make sense of it. You can jump right to the section that you're most concerned with, and you can just dive right into it. So yeah, I'll share the link as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. That would be great. Making things accessible in this industry can be a little challenging because there is so much jargon to wade through. And there's a lot of assumptions about what people know. And I know that as more people become digitally literate within our communities, the expectation is that they also understand some of these concepts. But we're doing some research right now, and that will be coming out here in the next couple of months, where we're finding that the general public's view of what's happening in the smart cities landscape is still very much not figured out and not well understood. And so when people are approaching these kinds of projects, they really need to do a lot of engagement and education with their communities.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that work. Sounds super interesting.
Yeah, well, so I'll throw my teaser out, you throw your teaser out, and we'll come together. So you had said in one of the NIST panels that you were on that instead of pushing fancy technology for the sake of it, leaders should ask what a community needs. Can you elaborate on why you think knowing what a community really needs is important for building smart cities?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the whole idea of civic trust, right? And people and policies being the foundation of successful smart city projects. And I remember talking on that panel, and I was primarily trying to make 2 very clear points, right? Like as communities, we should always try to move up the ladder of civic participation. So I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but sort of there's this theory around the ladder of civic participation that ranges from like just informing, consulting, involve, and to ultimately empowering. So I think every smart city project or opportunity is also an opportunity to engage the people, involve them in the decision-making process, and empower them to make those decisions, in the future as well. So, my first sort of big big point or big headline is, aspire to like sort of move up that ladder of civic participation and constantly ask yourself, am I just informing it and or just imposing a solution versus are we actually engaging people, understanding what they need, and then come up with something? Because what it also does, it bakes in buy-in from the community, and that just helps and makes the process of fostering trust way more efficient and easier. And also the second point I want to touch on is sort of like the model, right? Like there are lots of like traditional community engagement model where we focus on problems and deficiencies in a community, and residents are often viewed as sort of victims or and the problem with that is like that's like a vending machine model, right? Like I focus on the problem and you're just like frantically looking for a solution, and imagine having a vending machine and just pressing like, okay, this is what I need and this is going to fix it, right? I think that's a really outdated approach, and that doesn't really involve people into like really understanding the community needs. Versus there's another model which is it's a great acronym. It's ABCD model, which is essentially asset-based community development, which focuses on engaging people and putting people at the center. It views people as an asset versus victims or liabilities, right? And work with the community to understand what is needed, right? Because I think tied to this are some conversations around equity and inclusion, right? You want to make sure you understand who are you missing out when you undertake a certain smart city project. And I'm pretty sure when you engage the community, you find out the people you are missing out, and you will realize the need to include them into that process and decision making as you build your smart city project, right? So I think engaging the community early, but not too early to make sure you do have a plan in mind, is so important, because it just makes that process of building trust much more seamless and easy, So that's sort of what I was trying to get to with that comment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. It's just such a multi-layered process, and it's a very complex undertaking. Deploying one project is hard enough as it is. To get anything in government, whether you're talking about technology or processes or a new form for people to fill out, can be a very daunting undertaking. So taking, really complex things at scale, the way a smart city deployment can look, it's very easy to leave people out of the discussion or to misrepresent, their experiences within the community. And so thank you for helping to kind of bring in some attention to what the community needs and the asset that they can provide, or they can be assets rather than liabilities. I think that's a really great concept.
Yeah. I just want to add one quote that I really love on equity, and it's like, if you're not on the table, you're on the menu. So I think it's really important to understand, you don't want people on the menu, you want people on the table, right? I think if that's one thing to take away from that discussion, it's to remember that you want people on the table, not on the menu.
No, I think that was very well put, and and honest. Right? You build systems. If you don't have the people at the table, then you can build systems with that, leave them out of it, or that, eat them up, basically. They're not there to voice how they actually fit within that ecosystem, within that system. And then the problem is, once it hits scale and it becomes part of the institution, it's incredibly difficult to undo. And so having them involved at the beginning is critical. So we do have time for just one more question, which, you've already maybe touched on this, but what project are you most proud of at US Ignite?
I think I will have to say the Civic Trust Guide, right? Because last year when I started working with US Ignite, I was still a master's student. It was actually a part of my master's thesis, a requirement to graduate. And my boss, Lee Davenport, would jokingly tell me, he would say oh, my master's thesis, only my mom and my mentor read it, so you should be happy. So many people are reading your, work. So definitely it's one of my proudest accomplishment. I think it was very well received by the communities that we work with. pretty much almost every day we go back to that trust framework. So having, seeing that it's being used and valued by communities, I think makes me really happy. Even the work that we are doing with the Purdue Research Foundation, pretty much the policy guide inspired that work, and it's pretty much built off of the work that I did on the Civic Trust Guide. So it makes me really proud that what I did as a graduate student had actually had so much value and ended up being read by so many people, ended up being used by so many people. And so, yeah, I think that's like, yeah, has been the highlight of my my time at US Ignite.
That's really wonderful that so many people have gotten to see the fruits of your labor, and that it has lasting impact. I mean, that I think is what all master's thesis students aspire to, is that it's going to be life-changing or groundbreaking work. And in some cases like yours, it very much is, which is really exciting. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jigyasa. This was a lot of fun. I'm so glad we finally got a chance to dig into what US Ignite is up to, and how it's helping communities, and as well as the work that you're up to these days. Looking forward to having you back for future episodes.
For sure. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And thanks to Zpryme for letting me sort of amplify this work more and, remind people that smart cities is more about, it's just more than, it goes beyond technology and is a lot more about people and policies versus just tech. So let's remember, like, one thing, if we were to take away from this, would be to understand that technology is the easy part. The real complex thing is the people and the policies that are going to lay the foundation for your smart city projects. So don't forget about them.
Yeah, could not have said that better. Well, thank you again, Jigyasa. And with that, everybody, we'll see you back at our next episode.